Welcome to Gospel Tangents. I'm Bryndis Roberts.
There are many people in the LDS Church who have noticed gender disparities. What are some things that Bryndis Roberts has noticed in her time in the LDS Church? She'll talk about that in our next conversation. I'd also like to remind you, if you'd like to hear the entire interview uncut, please subscribe at patreon.com/gospeltangents. For just $5, you can hear the entire interview uncut. Also, if you'd like a transcript, you can either subscribe there for $10 or go to our gospeltangents.com and click on the yellow subscribe button. Now back to our conversation. Well, great. Well, so you joined the church in 2008, and now you're the executive director, is that right, of Ordain Women?
I'm the chair of the executive board.
The chair of the executive board, okay. So tell us about that little transformation. What happened there?
Well, as I think I mentioned, I fully recognize that the church was a patriarchal institution. The faith tradition from which I was coming, the Black Baptist Church, is in many ways a fairly patriarchal institution. So it wasn't that I didn't know what I was joining, but again, I really dared to believe that the concept of the priesthood and that having the priesthood lifted Mormon men up and made them, I guess, somehow not immune, but maybe that they had overcome, so to speak, some of the ways that patriarchy manifested itself in other faiths in which I had been involved.
So you felt that Mormon patriarchy was an improvement over, say, Baptist patriarchy?
No, I felt that the priesthood lifted Mormon men above the patriarchal institution and made them administer it in a way that was full of benevolence and righteousness. So I recognized it was a patriarchal institution. I guess I dared to believe that it was somehow a benevolent patriarchal institution.
Okay, so different than the Baptist Church?
Yes, different in the sense that I guess I put a lot of stock or a lot of hope or a lot of faith in the concept of the priesthood. The whole idea of the Melchizedek priesthood and the whole idea of reaching back to when Abraham was visited by the high priest or visited with the high priest. That whole concept made me think that somehow it was going to be different in Mormonism.
And is it different?
Sadly, I found that there were many examples, far too many examples of Mormon men engaging in what could only be called unrighteous dominion.
It's a sad experience that all of us experience that. I know there's a scripture in the Doctrine and Covenants 121 that references that. So, and I do want to ask you this. I don't know if you were aware, and I don't know how big of a history buff you are. Did you know that Sidney Rigdon was a Baptist?
Yes.
Okay. And he actually trained, I think it was Parley Pratt and Orson Pratt. They were going to become Baptist ministers. And so did you find a lot of similarities between the Baptist Church and the LDS Church?
Well, one of the things that struck me about the LDS Church is that it seemed to have this view, or many members seemed to have this view that they had somehow invented concepts whole cloth. I mean, that somehow that they had a monopoly on many aspects of the truth. And I like the fact that President Hinckley talked about that you could find truth everywhere. Because, the Baptist Church certainly emphasized tithing. There was a big emphasis in the Baptist Church on modesty. There was, although it's called communion rather than sacrament in the Baptist Church, and it was called Holy Communion. I mean, that was very much I don't know if they ever described it as a ordinance, but that was very much a part of the Baptist faith, and baptism, full immersion baptism, was very much part of the Baptist faith. Missionary work was very much part of the Baptist faith. I mean, you didn't have the program of young people pretty much all going on a mission, but you did have a good deal of missionary work in the Baptist faith. The whole concept of evangelizing was very much in the Baptist faith. So I found a lot of similarities between the LDS Church and the Baptist Church. In fact, one of the jokes that was kind of bandied about in our ward is that was one reason why some converts had difficulty, because they were like wanting it to be the LDS Baptist Church. They were kind of viewing it as kind of another Baptist church, and there were some differences. So.
Yeah, well, definitely. Well, that's interesting. I've always wondered about those Baptist Mormon ties, because I think there's, like you said, there's a lot of similarities, and so it's kind of interesting to look at those. So tell us about how did you first become acquainted with ordained women?
Well, as I was called into the Relief Society presidency in my ward in January 2010. And then in January 2013, I became the Relief Society president. And as I became more involved in the ward and attended ward council and PEC meetings and worked on things like the welfare program and worked with the local leaders in ministering different things, I became more aware of inequities and disparities in the church, whether those inequities had to do with the difference in the level of funding between programs for young men and programs for young women. One thing that just struck me, and I still don't understand, was, and particularly in a ward like ours, why the little boys had meetings every week, but the little girls only met every other week. And in an inner city ward, all of the children were just subject to so many temptations and so many things that made me think that the little girls needed a weekly bolstering or recharging or protection, whatever you said that the little boys got from meeting on a weekly basis. The little girls needed that just as much. So I didn't understand that difference. I found it interesting that while the church had fully embraced the Boy Scout program, the church had refused or did not embrace the Girl Scout program, which I had involvement with prior to joining the church, had actually been a troop leader, and felt, because of my prior involvement, that program would bring as much to the lives of the little girls as the Boy Scouting program was bringing to the lives of the little boys. I could see, particularly in other converts, the joy in the men when right after joining the church, or shortly after joining the church, they were ordained to the Aaronic priesthood, and it was like a progression, whereas the women converts had no real sign of progression for them. And then I started looking around at things in our ward that we had to wait for things to get done because there were not enough Melchizedek priesthood holders to do these things. In fact, my own temple class, I joined the church in January of 2008, didn't receive my endowment until October 2009. Part of that was because we were looking for a priesthood holder to teach the temple prep class. And there were other things. I mean, and it just seemed to me to not really make a lot of sense as to why a woman could not be perhaps a membership clerk, or why a woman could not do some of the other administrative duties that needed to be done at the church. And then I guess the bigger question for me became, and then why can't women be priesthood holders? I mean, and certainly because it started out with a concern that there was a coupling of the priesthood and all of these administrative functions, and I certainly thought those things could be decoupled and women could be allowed to do some of those administrative functions and make the ward and possibly the church run more smoothly and more efficiently. I mean, for me, the whole thing was about we are here to do God's work, and we ought to be about doing God's work in the most efficient and productive way possible. It really didn't make a lot of sense to me how if you got a workforce, you automatically disqualify half, or in some instances, over half of your workforce from doing that work. It just made no sense.
Well, and I agree with you, and it's nice to hear. Here in Utah, there's so many members that they can find anybody to teach a temple prep class. I had never even considered that a woman couldn't teach a temple prep class. Now that you think about it, I've never known of a woman to do that, and I didn't realize that's certainly not a priesthood calling. Why do you think that it has to be a priesthood holder, a man?
Well, actually, we reached the point in our ward where we started letting women teach the temple prep class because they're just, in order for life to keep going on. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure our local leaders, got some clearance, or maybe they studied the handbook and concluded that as long as this woman was operating under the authority of the priesthood, that she could do that. But, I mean, a lot of other questions. Why do you need to be a priesthood holder to keep track of the members? Why do you need to be a priesthood holder to count money? I mean, if you start asking that question, it keeps going, and then you get to the ultimate question of then why can't women hold the priesthood?
Mm-hmm. So it sounds to me that in your ward, the lack of women holding the priesthood really slowed down the work.
From my vantage point, it did.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm with you. Why can't a woman be a Sunday school president or a membership clerk or any? There's a lot of jobs that we peg for men only. And we say that it's got to be a priesthood, but there's really no priesthood function. So this built a frustration for you, and so what did you do then?
Okay, well, I guess I began searching for people who maybe had grappled with these same issues, and to try to figure out how had they worked it out, how had they continued to be active in the church and despite these issues, and found a number of online communities, and I think at that time I first found this group or this page called "All Are Alike Unto God," quoting from the scripture in Nephi. And it was a page that it was espousing all of these sort of principles, and if you agreed with that, you could sign off and become a member of this group, or at least, I guess, be able to comment on the page. And so the first thing I did was I did that.
This is a Facebook group, or
it's a Facebook page, certainly. Okay. One of the first things I did was do that. I guess the first thing I did was I found a group called Feminist Mormon Housewives, and became a member of that group, and posted some things myself, read things that other people had posted, so became very much an active participant in that group. As I was doing all of these things, I started hearing about the upcoming Ordain Women Action. There had already been one, and then there was going to be another one. And then that made me I wanted to learn more about ordained women, and I actually participated in that action via proxy. I let someone carry my name in the second priesthood action, and then things sort of progressed, and I decided that I came to the conclusion that the best way to eradicate what I saw as the disparities and the inequities in the way women and girls and young women were treated in the church was to ordain women. And so I put up a profile, and I read, well, you heard me read my profile, but I put up a profile and sort of became a part of Ordained Women.
Okay. So you participated via proxy. I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Bryndis Roberts. In our next conversation, we'll talk about the church policy that says a male priesthood holder must be present in the building when women are meeting. What does Bryndis think about that policy?
I found that to be a bit ridiculous because no disparagement, against any priesthood holder, but some of our priesthood holders were very, very slim, small-built men, and we had some women in the ward who were very strong, very tall, very athletic women. And I guess I thought from a sheer physical strength standpoint, I might prefer to have as my backup for protection these very strong women than this very small priesthood holder.
We'll have a transcript out shortly to our subscribers. If you'd like to subscribe and get a transcript, go to gospeltangents.com and click the yellow subscribe button. For $10, I'll give you a PDF. For $15, I'll give you a printed copy. You can also do that on patreon.com/gospeltangents. So just go there as well. You can also get past interviews on our Amazon page. Go to amazon.com and do a search for Gospel Tangents interview, and you should be able to see those as well. Please like our page at facebook.com/gospeltangents, and you can get the latest updates there. Also, check our Twitter updates at Gospel Tangents. Be sure to subscribe on our Apple Podcasts page. Go to tinyurl.com/gospeltangents, and you can subscribe on your iPhone or any Android device. So check that out. Now, for more great videos, click here to subscribe, here for a transcript, and over here we've got some more of our great videos.